You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Express columnist and broadcaster Carole Malone and the editor of the Courier in Dundee, David Clegg. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. The Metro leads with a blow for the government as the Court of Appeal has ruled its plan to send migrants to Rwanda is unlawful. According to The Guardian, the decision risks a bitter legal feud. The Mail insists Rishi Sunak should decide who comes to the UK, not people smugglers, as part of their flagship immigration scheme. The Express has news of an initiative which, if successful, would see hundreds of thousands more doctors, nurses and other staff trained by the NHS with the aim of retaining them for longer. The Daily Telegraph carries the same story, claiming it could be the biggest ever set of reforms in the NHS in an attempt to save £10 billion. The story also leads on The Times, saying there's a blueprint to boost the NHS workforce by 200,000. According to The Eye, 6 of the country's biggest banks have raised their mortgage rates again in a deliberate attempt not to offer the cheapest deals. The Financial Times says UK households withdrew record amounts from bank accounts last month in search of higher interest rates. The Daily Mirror headlines with a letter from Poppy pushing the Prime Minister about the need for free meals in primary schools. David's paper, The Courier, reports that the Tayside NHS Trust blamed junior doctors for the failings of a surgeon who faked his qualifications and botched a number of procedures. And The Star tells us that apparently boffins don't like being called boffins. That's news for you. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Carole Malone and David Clegg. Welcome to you both. Let's start with the front page of the Metro. And their story, their headliner, Grounded Hog Day for Rishi, a pun there that we've kind of seen this story before, haven't we, David?
We have seen it. I'm not sure that particular pun works particularly
Not
well.
really.
But the point that the Metro are making is that we have been here before with legal challenges to this policy to get on top of the small boat crisis by deterring people from trying to come and claim asylum here by sending them to Rwanda. Now, the ruling today from the Court of Appeal is that this is not legal because Rwanda is not a safe and secure place. Now, it's worth saying that that was only a majority verdict of the court, and I suspect that there will be a further legal challenge on this now to the Supreme Court. But I think ultimately, from the government's perspective, if you're looking at this on a policy basis rather than a political basis, and if you're looking at a political basis, the calculation could well be difficult or more or different. But if your idea is here, what can we implement that will work, that will efficiently deal with this crisis that has been going on for so long and has been getting progressively worse, this is a policy which we have now seen this week is going to cost a fortune. There is concerns about whether it can practically be implemented. It is clearly going to be marred in further legal challenges for a great deal of time to come, even if the UK government is ultimately successful in getting this decision struck down. So it seems to me that if we're looking for a quick and efficient solution to this problem, it's clear that Rwanda is not that solution.
And Carole, just how damaging is this to Rishi Sunak, following on from his personal pledge to stop the boats?
I think it's damaging in that sense that he can't say, well, we tried and we failed. He has said, we will stop the boats, and he said it again. And I think that's that is, he has to do that now. He doesn't have a choice. And I think David I just want to take what David said, that this Rwanda thing is not the way. It absolutely is the way, because while we've been waiting for the appeal court's decision, the number of crossings has lessened because a lot of the migrants were waiting to see what the court said. And if they had ruled against them, they would not have come over. So all this policy is about, really, it's about deterring people from coming here. And it did, just waiting for this decision.
Carole, where do we get that stat that fewer people are now coming?
I just read it in one of the papers tonight. I don't know which one. I've read every single paper tonight. It's in one of the papers, and it says that the numbers coming in recent weeks has been less while they've been waiting for this decision. I mean, you can do a fact check while I
think it's very hard to draw a direct correlation to know what's in the minds of people, even if the figure is correct.
You would know what was in their
figures
minds,
I saw
not pay $4,000 to come here if the High Court was then, if the appeal court was then going to send them to Rwanda. They wouldn't be paying the $4,000 to the traffickers, which I think is the important thing. This is always about being a deterrent, and I think, yes, it's tough.
But just on that, Carole, the evidence we saw this week is it would need to deter 2 and 5 just to break even, based on that economic calculation that was done this week that said it was going to cost £169,000 per person to send to Rwanda.
We're talking about the ongoing problem of tens of thousands coming here every year, where we don't have the infrastructure to deal with them, the housing. We can't afford it. Asylum is costing £3 billion a year now. We're paying £6 million a day to put these people up in hotels. Whole communities are being disrupted when they get landed with a lot of people from these boats. It is all about deterrent. And I think Rishi is in trouble today, but I think the government's been very bullish. Both Suella Braverman has said today that they've got until July the 6th to submit the papers. A number 10 Downing Street source said tonight that the lawyers had been poring over the paperwork all day, the appeal court's report, poring over the paperwork, and they are bullish about the fact they think they have a good argument that can win the case when it goes to the Supreme Court. The problem for Rishi, of course, here now is time. That is his problem, because we have an election in about 18 months. We're told that even if the Supreme Court takes it on, and they can do, because one judge dissented, it wasn't unanimous, they're saying that they might not even look at that until Christmas. So their decision will come sometime after that. So yes, he's on a race against the clock now to stop this.
Yeah, and we know that the scheme's going to cost about £140 million. But on top of that, David, this legal wrangling, I mean, that's going to cost as well. And The Guardian talking about a bitter legal feud. Who knows how long that will go on for?
I think that's the point. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's also going to take a long time. It's clear that this is legally contested ground, that there is uncertainty about this. The outcome is uncertain. But what we do know for a fact is that it is going to take a long time to resolve the legalities of this, and there's going to be a lot more cost incurred by the taxpayer to find out what that answer is going to be. Meanwhile, the boats will be continuing to come. So it seems, from my perspective, that what the government should really be doing, if they do want to stop the boats, is going back to the drawing board and thinking of some new ideas of what they can do to tackle this.
Like what, David? Like what? You know, the thing is, everybody keeps on saying, oh, we've got to get the traffickers. That is just, it's such an easy get out, because to get the traffickers, you're not just getting the guys who are bringing the boats over. This is a massive worldwide organisation that is controlling this. And no one has been able to get close to who's at the head of it. So it's very easy to say, get the traffickers and let's have another solution. But what solution? You know, when it was suggested we turn back the boat, there was uproar there among the Labour and the Lib Dems saying this would be inhumane. So what other solution is there? I mean, you know, you should tell the government, because I think they'd really like to know.
If I had a quick solution that I could give you in 30 seconds, Carole, I would have outlined it already. But I think one issue that there's talking about is providing safe and legal routes so that people with legitimate claims can make a claim, because that is an issue that is continually raised, and I've yet to hear the government respond to it satisfactorily.
We have safe legal routes.
I agree with you that this is a really intractable thorny problem that is caused successive prime ministers now difficulty. But Rishi Sunak has staked his reputation on solving this, and clearly his chosen path is not a good or workable solution at the present time. So it seems to me that the only solution or the only course of action, the only viable course of action from that is to have a plan B, to have a backup.
Carole, one of the sorry, just to explore further, one of the reasons given for Rwanda not being the solution is that it's ruled it's not a safe third country. That's a direct quote from Duncan Lewis solicitors, Tawfiq Hussain, one of the lawyers, that Rwanda simply isn't safe.
Well, I don't understand that, because it is a holiday destination. It is one of the most prosperous economies in Africa. It is in a list of 190 countries around the world. It's the 29th most popular to do business in. So I don't quite get how it's not a safe country. If they're talking about not being safe for the LGBT community, which I heard one commentator talking about today, well, I'm not quite sure that stacks up, because homosexuality is not illegal in Rwanda. However, it is illegal in 26 Commonwealth countries, but we never hear the left or what the Liberal Democrats going on about that. Homosexuality is legal in Rwanda. So the idea that these people could be persecuted over there is crazy. I don't get how it's not safe.
So the judges have got it completely wrong then?
In my view, yes, they have. And of course, the Lord Chief Justice thinks they've got it wrong as well. Lord Burnett, he said so.
OK, let's move on.
I mean, that is certainly true, and it is contested. But my understanding of the two judges who had the majority in this verdict, and therefore it has been implemented, is that while they say that Rwanda is certainly a safe country for tourists, what they're saying is that their judiciary is open to influence by the government, and they can't be confident that this asylum process will be handled properly, and that people may not be sent back improperly to a country where they will face torture. That is my understanding of what they are saying, that they can't trust that process, that will be safe for the people that are involved here. It is certainly the case, and actually there's been some very snobbish and, I think, unfortunate coverage about Rwanda, because it is a country that is safe to visit, is economically well developed, and certainly you can go there on holiday and have a very pleasant time. But that's not what we're discussing here. What we're discussing here is it going to be safe for these people to be sent there after having sought refuge in Britain? I don't know the answer to that.
Now 30 years after, David, 30 years after the Rwandan genocide, it is a safe country. 30 years ago, it was not. And we're talking about doing business with a country. If you look at what happened after the Second World War, after the genocide that happened there with the murder of 6 million Jews, we were doing business with the Germans 20 years after that war finished. The genocide happened 30 years ago, an entirely different government now, entirely different regime. And I'd really like to see the evidence. The point I was making there, Carole, is this is not a judgment on Rwanda as a country. It's a judgment on Rwanda as a destination for asylum seekers and refugees.
Okay. We could go on all night. Carole, I am going to stop you there, because we could go on and on this subject. So let's take a break. Hold your breath. Not for too long, but until we come back. Stay right where you are. Coming up, apparently banks are now deliberately competing not to offer the cheapest mortgages. We'll discuss that next. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. Still with me, Carole Malone and David Clegg. There they both are. Let's have a look at the Eye front page, and more worrying news for homeowners in terms of the mortgage hikes. They're just going up and up and up, Carole.
Yeah, they're saying there that banks are avoiding offering cheap deals because of market volatility, and they're saying that the cheapest fixed rates are 6.37%, even though that the interest rate is 5%. So it is terrifying. In fact, we just Max, one of the lovely guys who puts this show together, has just told us a story today how he's getting his first ever mortgage, and he had to be on the phone for the entire day with his mortgage broker in a queue waiting to get a fixed rate deal at 5.01%. And the deal was closing at 5 o'clock because there were hundreds and hundreds of people waiting to get this deal because of the fear of what's happening. And he got it with 14 minutes to go before the deal closed. I had a similar experience last week about getting a deal. And so people are panicking now because, the volatility is so great. We've seen 3 or 4 0.25% rises in the past few months, and we're told that it's not over yet. So people on that, some people are paying 5-6 times more for their monthly mortgage payments than they were 3 or 4 months ago. As the the fixed rate deals die, they're looking for more. So it is a terrifying time for people.
Yes, indeed, and the volatility extends to this story in the Financial Times with record withdrawals from banks, people looking to work with their savings and how they can best deploy them. David.
Yes, and the point that the story's making, which I think is a recurring theme and is always very frustrating, that we say it every time and nothing seems to get done about it, is that one of the reasons they think why there's been this record withdrawal from banks is that while the interest rates on mortgages are skyrocketing, and just to highlight that, I think that rate has risen in 10 days and a little bit to a level that means that if you're borrowing the average amount, you're paying about an extra £500 a year than what you were getting it for just 10 days ago. But what is not happening is the reverse of that, in that the banks are not giving interest or the interest rates to savers in the same way. So you're not getting any kind of return on savings in the same way that you're getting hit at the other end on borrowing. So there's also the issue that it was 4.6 billion taken out of banks in May, which is the highest amount since records began in 1997, I think. Is that people are also obviously dipping into their savings because we've seen this continuing problem with inflation, the cost of living crisis biting, and what is coming in on a monthly basis just isn't covering people's costs, so they're having to dip into their savings if they're lucky enough to have them. I think those two stories together, this continued upwards pressure on interest rates, savings and money in the bank being cleaned out, is just suggesting that those financial headwinds that we've been talking about for months are continuing to get worse, and that we're in for a difficult year in general. And
Carole, just quickly, no suggestion that the interest rate hikes are going to be reflected in terms of people's savings, is there?
No, it's shocking. Jeremy Hunt said this week that he's supposed to be having meetings with the bank and to the banks to try and get them to pass this on. And I still don't understand, Gillian, why Andrew Bailey, the guy who was responsible for all this nonsense, is still in a job. This is the guy who left it too late to raise interest rates, and so we had to do it. And this is why we've had this year of chaos, and people, the prediction is lots of people will lose their homes and there's going to be a housing crash. So this guy is still in his job, and it's terrifying for while he's saving God knows how much a year, people are in prospect of losing their home.